everyone. Guillaume Le here, host of the E-commerce Wizard podcast, where I feature top leaders in business and e-commerce. Today, we have Chad Rubin, the CEO and co-founder of Skubana. He also has experience running his own e-commerce store. Today, we will be talking about inventory management, more specifically tactics, strategies to tackle multi-channel, multi-warehouse, and other e-commerce challenges for B2B, B2C, and D2C. Before we get started, here's our sponsorship message. This episode is brought to you by MageMontreal. If a business wants a powerful e-commerce store that will increase their sales, or to move piled up dormant inventory to free up cash reserves, or to automate business process to gain efficiency and reduce human errors, our company, MageMontreal, can do that. We've been helping e-commerce stores for over a decade. Here's the catch. We are specialized and only work on the Adobe Magento Commerce platform. Even if a site doesn't have a Magento site, we've converted lots of sites over. We do everything Magento related. If you know someone who needs design, development, maintenance, training, support, debugging, or performance analysis for their e-commerce store, we got their back. Email our team, support@MageMontreal.com. Go to MageMontreal.com. That's MAGE Montreal.com. All right, Chad, pleasure to have you here with us.
Thanks, Guillaume. Thanks for having me.
All right. So you have an interesting story here to tell. Like, you created that company, Skubana, but it came out of a need and your own experience. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So started my own e-commerce business when it was really the wild, wild west. This was back in 2007. Started manufacturing and selling vacuum cleaner parts and accessories online. And so out of running that business and running the pain.
That's a good one.
I mean, it was definitely painful, right? So we were selling across multiple different channels. We were fulfilling it ourselves. I was running this massive warehouse. And I needed an operation system. I couldn't find one. And so the way I characterize an operation system is like on the front end, let's just say it's Magento. And on the back end, it's your finance, like QuickBooks or NetSuite. The messy middle is really what I needed. It's where the company operates. It's everything you need from a day-to-day operation that's mission critical to get those orders out the door. And so BS before Skubana, it was like you needed a point shipping software, and then you needed a point inventory software, and then you don't have centralized analytics to make decisions on. And so we started Skubana as a purpose-built modern day version of NetSuite without the bloat, without the pain, to plug and play to all different carriers, to plug and play to all the different 3PLs. We have an app store. And so it's all out of the box. It's pretty awesome. So yeah, I mean, I've been living that pain, and we started a business to solve that pain and to solve that problem.
Right. And let's say that inventory management software that you've built, let's start to define that a bit more. You started, like, when does a business need one, and what are the symptoms or the sign that they do need one?
Yeah. So like if you're on one channel and you have one SKU, you probably can use some of the rudimentary tools that are available to you out of the box in some of these e-commerce platforms. But as complexity increases, as your business makes more money. So I love rap. And so Mace had a song with Biggie that was like, more money, more problems. And so as the company is scaling and growing and you're making more money, that's where the problems happen, scaling challenges that you never actually thought would exist. And that's really where Skubana comes in. So typically it's probably at the cusp of like a $2 or $3 million number and goes all the way up from there, 100 million and beyond.
Okay. Do you want to give some examples, perhaps, the stories that the first few pain points that you've lived like this?
Well, okay. So, I mean, there's so many different, so that's the interesting thing about our software is that people come to us and we're sort of like doctors. We prescribe the medication based on the pain that they actually are experiencing. So in my case, I can speak from experience. I couldn't find a software that can handle my order volume, that wasn't going to be a 7-figure deployment and a year and a half of agony getting that implementation with resellers and consultants in the mix. And I was like, there has to be a better way. And there has to be a way where you have the point of order of the entry of the order, plus inventory, plus forecasting all together in one system. Because if everybody in your team is speaking in different languages, there's no alignment and there's no intelligence that you can garner to run the business better. Another example, which is a case study on our website, just as an example, would be someone like Tushy. With the pandemic happened, there was a run on toilet paper. And bidets skyrocketed because people couldn't get toilet paper. So Tushy's business blew up in a positive way. And they needed to actually be nimble and be quick to essentially start shipping from another warehouse, shipping direct to consumer from China, from Asia. And so if they were using a bloated system or an old school system or a legacy system, they wouldn't have been able to actually create those rules, get that new warehouse off the ground and getting them fulfilling on their behalf in like literally minutes. So that's just like another example. But for us, it's from anywhere you ship from, whether you actually fulfill yourself or you have a 3PL, multiple different warehouses, or as many channels as you have that you're selling on. We run and orchestrate those orders. We manage the inventory so you have visibility. We do all the forecasting, demand planning, and we automate a lot of the process so that your team can be doing higher impact activities.
Okay, so you go beyond, from what I'm hearing, just inventory management. You even go to the shipping aspect to handle that, and it's a other solution like ShipStation or Shipper HQ. I guess in a way you'd be replacing that as well.
So Shipper HQ, I think, like feeds in shipping rates into the e-commerce platform. But like I think you were spot on with ShipStation, right? ShipStation is a point system that only focuses on shipping. So imagine a world where you have everything you want about a ShipStation, but everything else you need to run your business all in one unified platform with an app store that helps you add strength to the platform on top of it. That's really what we've built.
Cool. All right. So, and let's say, what's your philosophy? Because any software that you develop, obviously, you'll have an end goal, vision, and that will make you do different decision as you build that platform, and you will have a totally different product. So, what is the philosophy driving all this?
The philosophy driving Skubana. So, I mean, initially the philosophy was I needed an inventory system. My business partner and the CTO was like, hey, we need orders plus inventory together. And the scope dramatically increased. I would say if I had to like put a philosophy on this, my philosophy has changed tremendously since when we started Skubana, which was 7 years later, which you can't see with the hair loss on top. But the philosophy now is like, what's going to be the feature that's going to make our customers and ourselves the highest amount of ROI? Because like we get features all the time. Everybody wants features. Everybody wants more things in the platform, especially as we've been able to ladder up into bigger, better brands that sell direct to consumer. And so everybody has requests. And so how do you parse through those requests? And so really it comes down to number one, what's going to be the ROI for our customers, for the entire customer base, plus ourselves and plus our investors. And then on top of that, we want to allow our brands to remove friction on the platform so that we can unlock non-linear growth for them. So if we can make a small tweak, they say this, there's a saying, small hinges swing big doors. And so if we make a small tweak and that can unlock non-linear growth and exponential growth for our customers, like we want to be part of that.
Pretty awesome. Like I'm seeing, for example, auto PO, so purchase orders. So to always reorder the right amount. That seems like a very interesting automation. It's something that I've heard lots of Magento merchants ask for.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty interesting. Like, is there any other kind of scenarios of automation that you'd like to talk about?
Yeah. So firstly, I'm a huge fan of automation, trying to find technology to automate manual labor, to augment the team so that my team can be working on higher impact activities. So I think the auto PO piece is a great example of one. And a lot of companies say they have auto POs, but like not in the way that we do it. But typically, if you're a merchant or a brand that's selling online and you're selling many different channels, you need to go through and look at all the velocity reports. How many did we sell on this channel? How many do we sell on this channel? How many do we sell from this warehouse and from that warehouse? And then you essentially have to do V lookups and H lookups, put all the information together. Now you can make your decision, and it takes weeks to put it together. And by the time you make that decision, you're already behind the curve, meaning you have to go and readjust your numbers again. So instead, we were like, wait, why don't we just take technology, let our system figure out, it already knows your velocity. It already has mapped all the SKUs together. It has your lead time. It has your mins on the vendor side. So why don't you actually have Skubana become a 24/7, 365 employee? It's constantly working in the background to make decisions, when to buy, how many to buy, with what vendor, at what cost, based on a specific lead time. We take all that information and we constantly are adjusting a purchase order for you and putting a nice bow on top. And then you have, as the brand or merchant, have permissions to authorize a purchase order. Since a PO is a legally binding document, you as the merchant or brand have to have the keys to actually authorize that purchase order. And so that's one example of automation, right? I'm just telling you what Skubana does, right? The idea of this is to just open up doors of perception for people to figure out what they can be automating in their business. This was an example for us of what we had done. Another example in Skubana is that we have order bots. It's something that we've trademarked, which are if-then statements that take the thinking out of fulfillment. So if you have 3 warehouses in the United States and you want to orchestrate those orders and balance inventory appropriately across those warehouses, Skubana is automatically figuring out what warehouse something should ship from, and it's actually going to be the cheapest shipping for your team and for your company. So we have rate shopping in the background happening automatically across all the main domestic carriers. Those are 2 examples.
Pretty cool. There are some specific strategies or tactics that you'd like to recommend to merchants, best practices and so on, to put in place when they want to deploy some inventory management.
I think for me, I think it's the sooner the better. I think it's very important to have a foundation. And if you're scaling a business that's growing rapidly, if you don't have a foundation, like it's going to fall apart. And so the sooner, the second that you realize that you're experiencing pressure and stress as it relates to stockouts, running out of stock or not having enough in stock, or not being able to manage your vendors appropriately based on lead times to run just-in-time inventory, I would suggest getting a system in place right away. And then it comes down to budget, right? Because there's a lot of entry-level softwares out there. And then once you scale beyond the point that you thought, your software kind of becomes the ceiling for you. And so do you want to re-platform again? Do you want to have to go through the pain of re-platforming over and over again? Or do you want to buy shoes that are bigger than what you need right now, but enough to go deeper down the rabbit hole? So I have a 19-month-old son. And so we don't buy shoes of where he's at today because his foot is growing so quickly. We're like, you know what, let's get him a few months older shoes. So that's just like my example. And so it just depends on your time horizon and it depends on your budget. But I recommend getting a sophisticated advanced system in place sooner than later.
And how does that work, let's say, with many marketplaces? Because we're talking like multi-channel here, like which channel would you support and or recommend to expand to?
Yeah, so we support all of the major e-commerce platforms along with all the major marketplaces. And there's a lot of long tail marketplaces out there as well, and those are available in our app store. But when you're deciding on where to sell, the filtration process is imperative. So, because you don't want to be everywhere and then be nothing to everybody. And so picking and choosing your battles and picking which platforms, where your customers live, where they spend their time, where they shop is most important. So as an example, before Skubana, which I still have, my e-commerce business, thinkcrucial.com, we manufacture and sell home appliance parts direct to consumer. Now we sell on Wayfair, Overstock, we sell on Home Depot, but like I may not want to sell on Sephora, or maybe it's not an opportunity for me to sell on Instagram. Nobody wants to look at dirty filters or replacement parts on Instagram. And so those are channels that we don't currently serve or service because that's not where our customer base lives. And so I think picking and choosing where you want to sell is super important. And so for me, like I think Amazon is big, right? People go to Amazon when they want to buy a commodity. And I'm in the top like 1,000 brands on Amazon today, which is still in the top 1%. Although I think back in the day when it was much more nascent, I was higher, but that's a vanity metric, right? Most importantly, like you need to make sure that you're making money on Amazon. Amazon's really good at telling you what you make, but they're really bad at telling you what you keep. And that's really what keeps the marketplace alive. But that's also what people find that's useful in Skubana is that we actually pull in all these fees that are obfuscated. We pull in the reports and we give you this profitability report per SKU per channel with every single fee associated with it to run the business.
Awesome. And let's say, where does the scope of your software stop? Let's say we're talking about managing inventory. But is it purely on the software side? What about the actual physical warehouse, like or scanning a code bar or something like that, entering stock, shipping
Yeah.
stock?
Yep. So that's really where our app store comes in. So we have a plug and play app store. We have a pretty big ecosystem that we built out. And for us, we shaped what our mama gave us. So we focus on the core. And then anything outside of the core is just a resource distraction. So we use our app store as a way to not have to build out a WMS, to not have to build out barcoding software, to not have to build out business intelligence software. And so we encourage others to build into us to essentially pick up where Skubana leaves off. And so the key piece here is that like when people think about ERPs, they think about big bloated systems and they think of companies like SAP or NetSuite. These companies started off with a ledger system and now have tried to build in an operational suite into their software. And these systems were built before there was another e-commerce. And so it's hard to use last generation's technology to build tools for the future, which is why they're so nimble or why they're not nimble, why a lot of these big incumbents can't pivot as quickly as they'd like to pivot or move into D2C. So Skubana doesn't actually touch the ledger, right? We have a beautiful integration that we built to QuickBooks Online, where all the information is filtered and on a daily, monthly, or hourly basis can be thrown into QuickBooks, but we focus on really the basics of operations.
Great. I think that covers it pretty well. Is there any other topics about inventory management that you'd like to cover?
Topics of inventory, I mean, it's such a broad topic. I think if you can get inventory management right, I think that's a key principle to succeeding in e-commerce, because if you have no inventory to sell, then you can't make money. And if you buy too much, then you have cash sitting. So it's actually finding the optimal place, the optimal number across all of your SKUs. And doing that is actually very hard, especially as your business grows. So, I mean, that I don't really have anything else to share on inventory at this moment, unless you see something I should be sharing.
I know that's pretty good. I think we've covered the topic. All right. So thank you, Chad, for your insight and for being here today.
Oh, thanks for having me.